we are live now. This is the first Danny that I am, have the pleasure of interviewing. So that's very nice. And I think the first ever fellow soccer player or former soccer player, which is always fun. So Danny Jensen, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
In our online studio. I didn't mention, we filmed, I would say 95% of the podcast episodes have been in the studio. And I personally much prefer it. We can smell each other, we can feel each other a little bit better.
Yeah.
Less of a delay, but this seems okay. So this can be our introduction. And if I'm ever in Scottsdale, Arizona, then hopefully we can find a place to do it. And if you visit, I didn't mention, I'm in South Florida, so if you ever find your way here for a pickleball tournament, or people visit here for other reasons too, so we can also figure out a place here in our studio and film something in person.
Love it.
Or go and play pickleball together. So let's start from the end where you're at now. Pickleball, I was introduced to, I guess, kind of late, maybe, like most Americans, when it became super mainstreamy, trendy. I told you through my in-laws, I found out about it and was, cornered into playing, and it was fun. I know that people sometimes make fun of it, just for what I hear on podcasts and different things like that. So what's your story with pickleball?
Yeah. So I started playing pickleball just over 3 years ago. I was like on that front, sorry, excuse me. On that like front range of before it got popular, right in there. I was a little bit after the first popular wave. The first popular wave that everybody says they started in was COVID. So like while everybody was shut down, Arizona, a few places in Southern California, definitely in Florida, some Texas spots, they were all open and everybody was running towards pickleball. It was outdoors, it was something to do. So the first big wave was COVID. The second big wave was a little bit after me, is once all those people kind of had been playing for a few years, then all of a sudden it was about, I would say maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago was the big one, when, like you said, it kind of went mainstream and we all started like hearing about it every day. I started like right in the middle of that. I just like accidentally fell into it, started playing. I was playing like every day, 2 to 4, sometimes 6, 8 hours a day. I had an unhealthy obsession with pickleball. And I just got good. I don't know how to explain it.
But how did you gauge your level, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
Yeah.
when you play FIFA, at home against your friends, you think you're good,
Yes.
until you meet professionals.
Exactly. So you think that you're good because you're playing local tournaments and you're winning local tournaments.
And
And
but quickly you signed up for like local tournaments.
probably within about 6 months, I was playing a lot of local tournaments and I was winning. And there's like little levels, and you start to like understand the levels. But it's like 3.5. You play like your first tournament 3.5. You're like, oh, I did pretty good. I'm gonna try 4.0, and then it goes 4.0, 4.5, 5.0, and 5.0 is like what everyone considers is like, oh my gosh, they're a 5.0 player. They're very good. Well, the best players in the world are 7.0. Right in that range.
Yeah.
It's like a weird scale. Not everybody kind of understands it. It's kind of, I still don't even fully understand how they came up with that scale. Like it doesn't actually make sense. But basically, to look at it, Messi would be like a 7.2 in soccer. Most college soccer players would probably be 5.5 to 5.5 to 5.5. Some of the best players would be 5.5.
If you're being generous.
If you're being generous, exactly. And then you'd get like a lot of the amateurs, like high school players would probably be, 4.0s. So you have a lot of those college soccer players that can beat the crap out of the high school players, of course. But then you get introduced to like that next level play, the 6.0, 6.5, 7.0 best players in the world. And they're 3-4 levels above even the best college soccer players, right?
Yeah.
That's the way to look at it. Right now, I'm sitting like right in the range of about a 6.0. So I can beat basically everybody at local parks.
Yeah.
Like,
But how do you know where you sit, like technically in terms of that scale?
yeah, so it's like a algorithm of some sort that's online. So if you play
Okay.
tournaments,
So I can see, I can like literally look it up and see where you
yes,
stand based on your
yeah,
performance.
and it's kind of evolved throughout the years. Like at one point, it was really easy to go up in level because you could go up even if you did pretty good against an okay player. Then at some point, it got really hard to go up in levels just because the algorithm's been changing and they're trying to figure it out. Recently, it's been getting harder to go up in levels just because you have to beat players that are better than you to get your score to go up at all. And if you lose to players lower than you, it goes down. It doesn't move very much. It just it's very, very
Is
small
it, and
increments.
like most things, is it like it's easier to drop than to climb the ladder?
Exactly.
I'm assuming.
Exactly. And I would say, well, the main reason is because once you're about like a 6-0 and you're playing pro tournaments full time, you're essentially playing against 6-5s and 7s every single game. So you're not expected to win. Well, I can beat a 5.5 player, let's just say, and my score might go up 0.001. And then you could lose to a 5.8 and it'll go down 0.004. So you're like, okay, so it goes down a little bit, but then you beat a 6.3 and it goes up 0.002, or you know what I mean? It's just like you
Yeah.
just don't know. It doesn't go up a lot, doesn't go down a lot, and it just gets very difficult to kind of make that next breakthrough. You have to start beating really, really good teams very consistently to start jumping up, which is possible. I did it
Yeah.
last week, but it's just hard to do.
And how does that work? Do you represent a team?
So I represent. I play underneath the PPA. The PPA, like it's like the NFL of pickleball. So
Okay.
I play
And do you need to,
when
but do you need to play for the PPA in the PPA to be on that ranking, or is that
so
independent of it?
sort of you don't have to, but I play solely PPA. So I signed with the PPA to play solely PPA tournaments. So now I can't go play other tournaments. So
Okay.
there's another league called the APP.
Yeah.
There's a few other leagues that are kind of starting. I don't play anything except for PPA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And for you, how do you deal with? And I want to ask you, as I know you as a soccer player,
Yes.
where let's say you can have a fantastic game and do everything you're supposed to do and not make any mistakes, but still lose, which we were both familiar with in college, at least. But now it's like it's just you, right? Or do you play doubles as well, by the way?
Yeah, so you play doubles too. So doubles is more like the mainstream game. So if you
Yeah,
go to local park, you're going to play a lot more doubles.
yeah.
Singles is a different beast because singles is very translatable from tennis. So you play a lot of former pro tennis players. So almost every time that I step on a court in a pro tournament, again in playing singles, I'm playing a pro tennis player,
And
a former pro
do
tennis
you
player.
have experience, by the way, playing tennis as,
No, no,
as,
no. I
as
was
a
not
kid?
no, just soccer. Yeah. So
Interesting.
it
Yeah.
it's a very it took me a while to get to any sort of level that could compete at that like that. But for doubles, it's a little bit easier. There's less, not that there's less tennis in it. You can still bring it in, but there's a few shots that tennis doesn't have that pickleball does, like dinking, like hitting. Dinking's when you're standing at the kitchen, you're just barely hitting it over the net.
Yeah.
Um,
The
that
kitchen
doesn't
is the light blue area by the net,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
very close to the net, the 7 feet on either side of the net, and so that doesn't happen in tennis. We can all turn on the US Open this weekend, and you're gonna watch people from the baseline just rally back and forth, and then when they hit a drop shot, that's just, like, a common, like, shot that you bring your player in, then you start, like, hitting passing shots, so, it's not as common in, tennis technically, right? Like, you
Yeah.
see them rally and hit winners. Pickleball is just not very similar to that. It's just so much different. So there's different skills
Yeah.
which allows other people to kind of break in, such as myself.
So as an athlete, back to my original question. So
Yeah,
like now you're just when you're not playing doubles, it's
yeah,
just you. So how is that in comparison to what you really grew up with, what you were like mentally conditioned for as
For
an
sure.
athlete?
Yeah. I mean, we played soccer, right? So there's 11 people on the field. You could have the best game of your life. You could score a hat trick and you could lose 4-3.
Yeah.
And you feel great. You're like, you know what? I did what I had to do. Obviously, we don't like to lose, but you're like, I kind of did my job, right? In these more individualized sports, it's a lot more internalizing what's going on. And when you're getting beat, it's very much as though you yourself are getting beat. So you just feel the wrath. It's
Yeah.
as if you've missed 4 breakaways, or, as a defender, it's like if you've given up a bunch of goals, you just like feel all the stress is on you, but it's like that nonstop because
Yeah.
it's an individualized sport. So, but again, like it's a different way of thinking, I think. You didn't play well when you get crushed,
Yeah.
right? Like you just know that. But it's also just a very humbling, like kind of
Do,
fun
do you
environment
feel
for me to do.
like, how old are you now?
I'm 29 now.
20. So as a 29-year-old, you're just at a different place, as a person before, even as an athlete, than you were when you were 18, 19, 15.
Yes.
So even, I've never played, I'm 30 years old. I've never played soccer as a 30-year-old or 29-year-old man in a competitive way. Um, but when you're 19 and you make a mistake, it's the end of the world, and it's almost sometimes difficult to recover from. And you might, pretend outwardly that you've recovered from a mistake, but it's killing you
Yeah.
from the inside. Is it different? I'm not a competitive athlete
Yeah.
anymore, but I'm always intrigued on how would I react now as a way more mature person to those situations.
Absolutely. So I used to be very fiery on the field. I wanted to win at all costs. I didn't care. I would yell at my teammates. I was not always the most pleasant person to be around on the field. Like it was like it's my way or the highway, and that was me being young and competitive and thinking that I knew the world. Then I had about 5 years off of competitive sports, or maybe even 6 years, 5 years. And I've kind of got back into it like with a new mindset of like, not the end of the world. I'm going to treat people exactly how I want to be treated. Um, it's been really refreshing. I have a great relationship with all the players on tour. It's just like, it's a different world for me right now
But
than what I was like in soccer.
do you think you'd be able to do that if you were on the field with 10 other guys? Just because if someone is disappointing you, let's say on the pitch, where you feel like they're not doing as much as they should, then it's
Yeah,
very hard to maybe not express that passion. Whereas on tour, your success is not in the hands of those people around you.
absolutely. So like doubles is a little bit, I would say, like, but
Yeah.
here's the interesting thing. There's subs in soccer, right? So somebody's on the field really struggling, you just sub them off.
Yeah.
If you're in the middle of a game, let's say it's doubles in pickleball, and your partner's struggling, you can't just sub him off. So to get on top of them at that point in the middle of that game, all it does is hurt them, right? It takes their level from probably wherever they're at to even worse than they are at. And usually, if you're in that frustrated state, they're probably not playing good. So you don't want them to be worse. So I kind of started understanding that I can't do anything about it. I chose that person as my partner. And if I'm going to do anything about it, you got to drop them, and you not better not play another tournament with them or something, right? Like if they're that much farther below you.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just about like making sure that your partners have that like energy that you can kind of keep feeding that part of them to bring them up and not really push them down.
Yeah.
Where I used to, I mean, I was not, again, like I was kind of ruthless. And I used to tell my coach, yep, sub that guy off. He sucks. Right. Like I'd be like, he needs to get off the field. Now I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's figure out what we need to do as a team while we're on the court together to like make us the best team possible right now. And then you deal with the other things later. And so I think that's partly maturity. I've kind of gotten a little bit more mature, But I've also realized that like today I'm either going to win or lose. And then tomorrow I'm going to win or lose, and I'm going to keep playing, and I'm going to keep getting better. And that's just part of the game. And now I'm being able to wrap my head around that. It's easier for me to grow as a player.
Yeah, and do you think, looking back at your time at Ohio State playing Big Ten soccer, you and other players should have adopted that, mindset more?
Honestly, probably. Yeah. I would say yes. Um, the
Because
other thing that it's
yeah,
done for me is it's kind of created better relationships. And when you have better relationships, then people want to fight harder for you. So there's more pieces that's a little bit deeper than just are you playing good or not playing good.
I always felt in soccer is like everyone, right? Every time you get the ball, you know that you're in danger of messing up, and everyone pointing fingers at you. So everyone is like super on edge and vulnerable all the time, and because no one likes that. No one likes your teammate yelling at you, blaming you, your coach blaming you or subbing you off. So everyone is always like super anxious about that. And one would argue that it's good because you're always on your toes, and you don't want to make a mistake. But I found that because of that, it's like your teammates, your brothers, the guys who you're fighting with, almost like waiting for you to make a mistake, so that we can point fingers at that guy, and we lost
Yeah,
the game. Let's make it seem like we lost the game because of that person's
so
mistakes,
true.
and it
Yep,
like it cleans my slate a little bit, and will buy me more credit, more time with my team, with the coach, with whatever universe we live in, that is determined week by week by all these different games and trainings, and that is so dynamic. And again, it could be you make
for
one
sure.
mistake, you're a center back, you make a mistake, or you're a striker like you miss an opportunity that
Yeah,
changed the momentum of the game, and now we lost and we're out and the season's over. So
yeah,
I almost felt that, and I always, maybe it's naive, but I always believed that if everyone was just there to uplift each other, then at the minimum we wouldn't do worse as a team. I don't
yeah,
think, because like you said, if someone makes a mistake, they're already at a low point. Now, if everyone's blaming them, or if the coach now even subs them out, like
yeah,
it might be unrecoverable
for sure.
forever. Potentially,
Seriously, some people have had
yeah,
that decline. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I totally believe that. The other thing is that in pickleball, like you don't really have like a full season, right? If that makes sense. Like you
yeah,
have a tournament, and the tournament is this weekend. And so it's like one game is like a tournament. So back then, I knew that I had to play with these guys all season. So I needed them to compete all season. I had to be on their team all season. Well, it was really hard if somebody was struggling for a series of games and we couldn't get rid of them. Whereas if a partner of yours kind of in pickleball is struggling for a series of tournaments, you just technically drop them and you just don't play with them anymore.
yeah,
So and you don't have to deal with it. So it's really like they're so different.
yeah.
But I agree with you that like it would have to help the overall team if we were all just supporting each other and all being very, very understanding that like, hey, if he loses the ball, it's also my fault, regardless who it is. If my goalie lets one through his hands, somehow that's my fault. And if we all adopted that mentality, there's no way that everybody wouldn't play better.
And obviously soccer is different because you also have like the dictator, the coach from
Yeah,
above, who's who really creates that universe that I mentioned.
for
But
sure.
so in pickleball, do you have that sort of influence? Are is your career in the hands of anyone else?
Absolutely not. Yeah, like it's basically
It's pretty
it
freeing, no?
it's yeah, it is freeing. I'm trying to think if there's anybody that like your hand it's just not. It's like all on you. So the other thing about that is like when it's all on you, there's kind of no excuses. It's like if you want to get better, like you're either going to go and put time in on the court or you're not. And sometimes in soccer, for example, I couldn't I couldn't necessarily make my goalie go and put extra time in. Just like I can't make a random pickleball player go in and put extra time in. If they want to be better, they're going to go do the work, right? So it is kind of interesting that you can do that in more of an individualized sport. But that's why those, the best gymnasts in the world, we just watched the Olympics, the best swimmers in the world, those guys are all putting their own time in, and they're all playing these individualized sports that allows them to get ahead of their competition just based on their own personal internal belief that they're better.
Do you remember yourself as an athlete when you were like just getting going, age 10, age 12?
Yeah, those were good times.
So do you like remember what shaped you to be like passionate or ruthless, like you mentioned, the way that you were? Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if there was like an instance or if there was like a thing, but I remember like way back when I realized I got really good at soccer. I always hated the fact that somebody else could hold back my career. It was the only thing I disliked about team sports, because I was like, wow, if this guy's on the field with me and he loses the game for me, then I get less opportunity in front of the next best crowd, the next best thing, the next, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. Like, if somebody messes up, it's affecting my personal journey in soccer. And I think I realized that probably when I moved from Colorado to Miami, Florida, because I went and played for Weston for 2 years before I went to Ohio
Okay,
State.
just around the corner from me.
Yes, yes. And so when I went from Colorado, I was probably on the number 120 team in the country. Like, we were not good. Definitely bottom fourth of all academy teams. And then when I went to Weston, we were, top 10. And I realized, wow, if I'm surrounded by bad players, it affects my career. I didn't have opportunity. Now I'm affected by good players, and I have all the opportunity in the world, which is how I got to Ohio State and how I did all this. None of that would have been possible if I hadn't moved to Weston.
Super interesting. And what did you move with the family, or was it specifically for soccer?
Yeah, it was my dad's job. So I
Mm.
got lucky. Let's just call it what it is. It was just sheer luck that I ended up in Miami, Florida, playing for Weston. We lived in Weston, so I went to Cypress Bay and had like an unbelievable team there. And then we played for Weston FC, and so it was a crazy way things kind of shape themselves for me to end up at Ohio State.
And were you always a forward, a striker?
So in Colorado, I was a forward my whole life, and then towards like 13, 14, 15, I had some coaches that I just like really butted heads with. Didn't like that much, but we played more of like this defensive style there. And so I was put at center back, and I would just control the game. But I was like a pretty little guy. Like, I wasn't, I was like 5'4", like when I was like 14. And but I would try to control the game, right? That was my goal. And then, I moved to Weston, and I was like, I'm not playing defense anymore. So I went and played and tried out as a forward, made it as a forward. And at the very beginning of my first academy season at the U18 level, I was one of the top goal scorers in the country. And that's obviously how kind of my story started and got recruited.
Got noticed that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just
amazing.
crazy.
And did
Yeah.
you like looking back at your college career at Ohio State, where you like how do you summarize it? If you're looking at 17-year-old Danny Jensen, how did
Yeah.
based on your expectations to what you were entering, how do you look back on it?
Yeah. No, everything. I could not talk highly enough of Ohio State. I had a chance to go to Indiana. I was very close with the coaches at Indiana,
The
and
Yeagleys.
the Yeagleys, and then as well Maisanoff, who's now the coach over at Ohio State.
Mm.
So I was very close with them, had great relations, and it just ended up like I ended up getting just a way, way, way better offer from Ohio State, as well as starting freshman year. Um, Indiana was going to offer me a little bit less, but they also that year were bringing in one of the top U.S. national team players at the same recruiting class as a forward. So I was kind of like, I don't really, not that I don't want to fight for a spot, but like I have a spot with a better offer and a better I'm just going to call it a better school. So I'm a huge football fan. So when I had a chance to go to Ohio State or Indiana, it just made more sense that if I was that I wanted to go to Ohio State for the big school feel. Not that Indiana isn't the big school feel, but it was just something that was inside of me. I was like, I love the fact that Ohio State's on national television every single week for one of their teams. And if you look at it this weekend, Ohio State's probably going to be on TV again. So that also played a decision in my pick for where I went to college.
And as a success on the pitch, how do you look at that today?
I always wonder if I went and played underneath Yeagley and I played with the Thompson brothers and a few of these other guys, where would I have ended up? I don't know. But that's a what if situation, right? Like I think I ended up top 10 in goals, assists, and points in Ohio State history. So that's like a personal thing that was pretty cool for me. But we ended up with one Big Ten championship, so that was pretty cool. We had a nice run to the Sweet 16 one year. I had some good stuff that went on there. I had a major head injury my senior year, which is why I stopped playing soccer. But other than that, it was just kind of, you always wonder if there was something else, if something else would have been unlocked with going to a different school. But again, woulda, coulda, shoulda. You're gonna lose time off your life if you start thinking about that kind of stuff.
But do you feel like you maximized yourself in terms of, like you spoke about the Olympians who invest so much time in themselves? Do you feel like you maximize your the resources and maybe time that you have there as an athlete?
Not even close. Not even close.
Which is a common answer, because we don't even realize the resources that you have when you're there.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Again, like you're an 18-year-old kid going into the first time away from your parents and all this kind of stuff. The first time you've seen alcohol, like really, like I know everybody has their own high school experiences and stuff, but it's the first time that you've been around people that are just kind of able to do whatever the heck they want to do. And man, like I think I definitely tapped a pretty high bar. It's not like I didn't do anything, but there's a piece of me that's like, if I would have used all the resources available to me at Ohio State for 4 years correctly, right? Correctly is different than what I did. I didn't do it incorrectly necessarily. It's not like I would just like wasted my time, but could I have put an hour extra a day and really honed my skills with my coaches whose offices were right across from the field? So I could have easily had a coach working with me one-on-one every single day. That would have been easy. They're right there. I just didn't take advantage of that stuff, but I didn't realize that at that time. Again, I was an 18-year-old kid who was having fun and meeting people. And, I'm a social butterfly. So I'm out there like, flirting and doing, typical college stuff. And you don't realize what you had in front of you until you're gone.
Yeah, and it's also like, you're almost made to believe. Also, I can only say this now as a 30-year-old, not as a 20-year-old, that you're made to believe, like, as a student athlete, like you're doing so much and like your plate is so full, and so you go, like, you walk around campus thinking that you're maximizing yourself and you're doing as much as you're told, and maybe you're even doing a bit extra, which is, if you're already doing something extra, is like you're doing more than maybe other students, and
Exactly.
you've ticked the box on maximizing yourself.
So true.
But there's always more. And also I went to Penn State, as you know. Also just thinking about the resources, and only after leaving college and being exposed to more athletes' experiences in other colleges did I like realize that, like, really how lucky I was, really just to have everything that all the resources they just pour into the athletes.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And like now seeing what I do with pickleball, I work 5 times harder playing pickleball than I ever did playing soccer. I was naturally gifted in soccer. I didn't watch soccer all that much. I obviously, when you're in that environment, you end up watching some soccer. But man, all I do is watch pickleball now. I watch so much pickleball. I play
And
so much
do you
pickleball.
watch it like in a different way? Like, are you
Of
looking for
course.
certain things? And
I mean,
yeah,
as you imagine, like when we watch any high level soccer game, we're not just waiting for the highlight goal, right? We can dissect how a number 6 is playing, um, and how a team is
yeah,
kind of
movement patterns or things like that. Yeah,
everything. You
yeah.
can dissect why a 10 is playing, a little bit heavier to the left side, right? Per se. Oh my gosh, that's where they're attacking through. They're defending more on this. Like how our teams, all the strategy things that we can see in soccer. Um,
Something that
I,
I
I do that
so
for pickleball.
yeah, which is amazing, and that's one of my regrets, if you will, in watching soccer. I was a soccer nerd for as long as I can remember myself,
Love
and
that.
I
Love
used
that.
to watch. On the weekends, I would just watch game after game after game. But now, like objectively looking back at me in terms of like where you are with pickleball, what I would have done differently. I was so busy emotionally with the games. Like I'm a Man United fan, so I'm looking at it as an emotional thing instead of as a technical thing. I'm looking at, if I'm watching a whatever Barcelona Real Madrid, I'm looking at it more as I want Ronaldo to win instead
Yeah.
of really watching the game. And the main thing is that I spent all of my soccer time watching soccer time watching the 7.1 7.2s. No one in
Yes.
soccer spends time watching what I should have done, spend more time, watching the 5.5s, the 6s, because
Yes.
those are not the anomalies, right? That's who I'm competing with. And I'm not
Yes.
even there. It's like I'm a 5, but I'm watching the 7.2. So if I'm watching Gerard Piqué playing for Barcelona, it's it's different things. When it's
Completely.
different sports. It's really as different sports. So that's something I regret, and it's something that's difficult to even like when my son plays soccer, it's going to be
Yeah.
difficult to convince someone to I don't know even pay attention to the MLS center backs instead of the PKs of the
Absolutely.
world.
Yeah.
But
And
I
the
think that
MLS center backs are still like what we would consider in pickleball probably like a 6, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But so I
amazing.
was, maybe with my accidental like hubris, I'm like, I wouldn't even watch an MLS game because it was boring or just not at the level of entertainment that I'm was used to. So
Definitely.
that's what we get caught up a little bit with sports is the entertainment part. And if you're a professional, you shouldn't be looking at it that way because there's so much to learn from the sixes
Yeah.
that we just somehow are conditioned to ignore because it's not as exciting. It's just
Yeah.
not,
Well,
And now
and
we're exposed to the Premier League always, the La Liga and the level of soccer is even today when I watch it's like it's unbelievable. It's
well, it's
unbelievable,
like
and it's
the parent mindset where, you watch your some of these Major League Baseball players, right? Like Little League Baseball parents are hilarious because they go to a baseball game, an MLB baseball game. They're watching somebody throw 95 miles an hour with 5 different pitches and, these unbelievable athletes. And then their kid can't hit a ball off of a tee and they're stressed. They're stressed. They're like, why is my kid and like you should be able to do this and this and this. But you got to like take a full step back, understand, hey, you got to start somewhere to get somewhere. And there's levels in that. There's a staircase. There's not like necessarily just an elevator. So hitting like each one of those stairs and understanding that like, to become one of the best soccer players, this is my biggest regret. This is my biggest regret. I did not work on my left foot enough. That's it. I did not put the time in on my left foot that I put in on my right foot. And it doesn't seem that crazy, except for the fact that now when I play pickleball, I'm putting more time in on my backhand than I am on my forehand because I know that that's where my weakness lies. Right. But I didn't think about it back then. I just said, "Oh, I'm just gonna I'm gonna get through it. I'm gonna figure it out. My left foot is good enough. It's okay. It's good enough. I can still score goals with my left foot, so it must be good enough." Whereas it could have been a weapon, right? Had I put that time in, had I like just taken a step back and understood where those little steps were that could have made me a better soccer player immediately.
Yeah, and it's like it's hard, and something that's hard to explain to teenagers, to kids, but just how, again, even just having your left foot not as good as your right foot, you have no idea to perceive how much you're limiting yourself on the pitch. Not just in terms of passing the ball with your left foot. Everyone can do that, right? If you're
Yep.
if you're a 5.5, everyone can shoot and pass with and cross with their left foot, but not everyone can think with their brain the same way with their left foot as their right foot, and then you're
So true.
just missing so much of the game. And by the way, me too. And I also, I would consider myself, I could cross the ball, I could kick the ball, I could, use my left foot, but I didn't have the same brain connection to my
It's
left
so
foot.
true. It's so true.
Do you have like a coach now or someone that's, guiding you in terms of your development in pickleball?
Yeah, like we try to, right? Like everybody's trying to, there's not enough money in pickleball yet to like where there's like full-time coaches necessarily that just want to spend time with a player. Like tennis has just like coaches sitting in their box. If you watch this weekend, you'll
Yep.
see, that they have specific coaches that will be with them 24/7, travel with them. We don't have that yet in pickleball. That's just, I mean, there are a few players that are getting to that level, but that's different than everybody being at that level to compete. So, but when I'm back home, yeah, I have coaches that I work with that like have been working with my technique, that are working with different things. You also have, this is a really unique thing about the pickleball community. You have players that are willing to just drill with you and work on things with you because they get better at the same time as you get better. So when you have those people in your life, you're able to be like, hey, I got to hit 1,000 cross court dinks today. And if I don't do that, I'm not going to be good enough. And they will sit there and they'll grind out 1,000 cross court dinks with you. And that's not necessarily what I consider fun. That's not the fun part of pickleball. The fun part of pickleball is going to tournaments and socializing and, winning and all that kind of stuff. But it's the stuff that's necessary to get to that level. And it's the stuff I didn't necessarily do in soccer. Right. So I understand that.
So how do you is it self-exploration and like discussion with other professionals in terms of like guiding in what to work on, how to work on things?
Definitely, yeah. Like we're all very close on the tour. I mean, some of my best friends ever in my life now, and then you end up playing them, right? It's a weird like that you play one of your best friends in a match in a pro tournament. You're like, and after the match, people are okay to ask, hey, like, what do you see? And they're like, hey, you gotta be able to play the soft game with your backhand, or you got to be able to hit a forehand winner from the, like, this was my safe spot. Like there's safe spots on the court. So like a lot of times you'll hear beginners, they don't have as good of backhands. So if you're playing a beginner in pickleball and you just want to win, you just hit it to their backhand because they're not going to beat you. Yeah, it's like, it's very simple. So
Note taken, yeah, for my
yeah,
next visit in the park. Yeah.
it's like target the in-laws backhand. There you go. So, but that's what you do really, right? Like, it's just like, but at the pro level, there's much more minute things. It's like, you can't just target their backhand. You got to target their backhand in a different way on certain shots. Like if you just like hit it to their backhand every time, they're going to beat you. So there's so many different like nuances, but understanding those nuances is what takes you to the next level. Just simply.
Yeah, so cool. And what's your training regimen like? Because also,
Yeah.
also soccer wise, also something I think about is just that relationship between working on soccer and working on the conditioning, the fitness and the conditioning around soccer to allow you to play the game.
For
Which,
sure.
by the way, personal opinion, I think especially in the my college experience, and I don't think it's changed much, is still like light years away from getting that balance correct.
I agree with you. I think that there's a large proponent of technical work versus conditioning work versus strategy that needs to go into college soccer. And I think that every program does it a little different and there's not like a set way. And the problem that I've seen is that, some coaches will be like, you can't even start a game if you can't do this conditioning test. And then they'll have some player that has a first touch of a brick wall starting because he can pass a fitness test, right? Like there's little things like that. But for pickleball, it's a lot different because again, it's like more internal. Like I either am at that level or I'm not at that level.
Yeah.
So I have a strength trainer who's also doubles as my nutritionist. His name's Zach Turner. He was a football player at Ohio State. Online, he's everyday athlete fitness. He's unbelievable. He puts
And
together
was he an athlete at Ohio State when you
yeah,
were
he played football and and now he's kind of gone into that nutritional and fitness space and he's just absolutely killing it. He does amazing stuff and he does very like specific things whatever I ask him. Like I'm like, "Hey, I need help with pickleball specific movements." Actually, I told him two things. You're going to laugh. I said, "I need to be the best athlete I can possibly be." Obviously, that's number one. I need to be fit. I need to be strong. I need to be all that. But I told him, I got to be able to do pickleball specific movements. So that's a lot of like rotational stuff, a lot of quick bursts, that kind of stuff. I also said, I want to look good
yeah.
because I'm like, I'm a normal guy. I don't know, right? Like I'm just being honest. So I told him those two things. I'm like, I got to be able to do both. And he's like, all right. And he put together a tailored program for me. And then he helps me with my nutrition, which has been really nice. So that side off the court is taken care of. Then on the court, I work with different people to kind of hone different skills. I work with a singles coach who does a few different things. My doubles game is kind of a mixed match of a bunch of players that all kind of drill together and help each other. So I do that. And then in terms of just like staying in shape and all that kind of stuff, it's just like, it comes down to like you being willing to go into the gym and put the time in that, like I have the app with all my stuff that I need to do for the day. And it's just whether or not I show up and actually do it. So it'd be easy for me to say, yeah, like it's easy to show up. I don't do anything. Well, now I'm traveling. It's a travel day. You're tired. You get to the hotel. Are you going to go to the gym that day? The answer is that you need to. You should be. But again, you get kind of caught up in the world of travel and you just like make excuses for yourself. But it's
Yeah.
easier for me to go to the gym now than it was when I was playing college soccer, because when I was playing college soccer, I looked at it as a full team sport. Now I know if I'm failing, it's all on me. So it's just a different level of it's me
Yeah,
internalizing all that
responsibility.
responsibility for sure.
Yeah. And it's so for you now, it's a full-time thing?
Yeah, full-time thing. That's all I
Yeah.
do.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's not where I make all my money. So I make a lot of my money through coaching. So I coach different
Pickleball
types
though.
of pickleball stuff. I basically go and coach a bunch of different camps, stuff like that, where people come in large group camps. I do very little personal, like
And
one-on-one.
and is it like kids the coaching or
Actually, you'd be shocked. It's more like your in-laws age.
yeah, the in-laws want to win on the weekends.
Yes, the weekend warriors, the neighborhood
Yeah.
warriors. Like I so many people will go to these camps and just like their only goal is to get a little bit better than their neighbor next door.
Yeah.
That's it. So, and I can do that. I
Yeah.
can do that in about 30 minutes. I can make you better. So I'm not too worried about that. So a lot of people like love going to these camps because they get little nuggets, then they go back, they show their friends how much better they got. And that's all that it is really for them. And they're the ones, and I'm being very honest, and I don't ever want to like lie to anybody. They're also the ones with the money,
Yeah.
right? Kids still are playing football and soccer and AAU basketball, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
But is it becoming more popular like around
Yeah,
teenagers,
y-
kids?
yeah. I think the next path, the next thing that has to happen is it has to take off kind of at the collegiate and at the high school level. And if there's programs put in schools for pickleball specific, then kids are going to play it more often. But like, why would you start playing pickleball right now if you can't go to college for pickleball and you want to get a college degree,
Yeah.
right? Where you're going to go play soccer, you're going to go play baseball, basketball, you name it. But pickleball's not fully there yet. It's slowly getting there.
Yeah. And there's a paddle, right? The
Yeah.
paddle is the parallel sport to
Yeah.
pickleball that people say is better, some say it's worse. Have you played?
Yeah. I've played once.
Okay, so
Played once.
yeah. And
It's extremely fun. The barrier to entry is much higher. if that makes sense. So, um, older the older generation is not going to play as much paddle. Far more dangerous. The ball's moving much quicker. You can hit the ball a little bit harder. Um, Overall, it takes a little bit more athleticism to play that to play padel.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it
with
Padel?
paddle or
Yeah, Padel.
paddle, I'm still kind of learning it. Right, like I know how to say pickleball, and that's about it. But it's that sport. There's the barrier to entry is just so much higher. On top of the infrastructure is way harder because you got to have the walls and you got to have certain type of ground. Well, there's very few of these places around the country. There's a couple in Phoenix, there's a couple in Miami, um,
Less
a couple in
accessible.
Texas. Yeah, but it's so much less accessible.
Yeah.
Where for pickleball, like you just pop up a net, you buy pickleball paddles on Amazon for like $10 and you just go hit around and you can play with your in-laws. You could also play with a 10-year-old kid. Like the age range is just so big that you could actually go and play with versus paddle or padel is it's a lot less of that. It's more like tennis because tennis there's just a larger skill gap when you get older and you can't move quite as well. There's going to be that barrier to entry.
And have you played tennis since you started pickleball?
So I actually haven't. I haven't even touched a tennis racket in
Yeah.
almost like probably like 20 years. I think like the last time I touched a tennis racket, it was on like a vacation to Mexico with my family. And my older brother was in high school playing tennis. And so he was just serving on me and I was trying to hit the ball back and he was just killing me.
Yeah.
I actually believe now, even without any tennis background, that I could beat my older brother who played tennis in high school. But that's because now I've developed a lot more of my racket ability.
And you mentioned a bad head injury your last
Yeah.
year in Ohio State. What happened there?
I was playing at Maryland and I was doing a clearing header. It was on a set piece. The ball went in. I was doing clearing header, and I believe it was Gordon Wild. If you remember Gordon Wild, very good
Yeah,
player for Maryland.
the German kid.
Yeah, left-footed. And he basically did like a scissor kick with the ball behind him. And when I was doing the clearing header, I kind of came like through it, and he scissor kicked with the goal behind him. He kind of turned and tried to volley the ball. Well, I hit it first. He volleyed me through my face.
Oof.
Yeah, so um, crushed my nose, everything. Gave me my 5th major concussion. Do you remember I wore that headband?
Yeah.
So I already had head injury issues. Ohio State wouldn't let me on the field without that concussion band.
Okay.
And so which is why I wore it. I didn't wear it for style.
Yeah. No, I just thought it was your thing.
I mean, it kind of had to be because they wouldn't let me on the field without it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they wouldn't even let me practice without it. And I'm like, we're playing like 3v3. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't.
But those so when did those first concussions come in? Like, were you playing with that band from your first game at Ohio State?
From my first game at Ohio State, I probably started playing with it in high school. I had 4 major concussions before I came into college, and I actually went 4 years without another one. And then my senior year, I obviously had a bad one. But I started wearing that when I was like 14 probably. So it kind of was my thing. It kind of at first it was a little bit weird, like, but then I just it was really easy. It was actually better for getting recruited. I mean, if you want like a little piece for recruiting things, you got to stand out somehow.
Yeah.
Right. And as a white kid that's 5'8", and probably back when I was getting recruited, I was probably like 5'6", relatively normal looking. I didn't have anything that made me stand out. So I think wearing the headband helped me a little bit because there's coaches that'd be like, "Oh, Danny, oh, the one with the headband." Yes. Right. Something that was just like barely different and it wasn't anything bad, but it was more recognizable. So I think it actually helped me long term.
Yeah, and also, I mean, also looking back at the whole, also something I think about playing soccer and the concussions and the head injuries and the things involved around there. It's also like when you're 15 or 20 and you're playing, you're like willing to put your brain in danger to beat Maryland.
Yeah, you're
but
fully willing to. You're just
but it's so
throwing your
not
body at it.
so not worth it.
No, so this is why I stopped playing Sunday league soccer. I was going out like it was probably like, the year after that I played at Ohio State, and I was like, I'm gonna go play some Sunday league. And I'd be going out there, and these guys are these accountants and whatever they're doing nowadays that used to play high school soccer, trying to prove something. And they're like going after your ankles and like big hard tackles. And I was like,
Yeah.
what am I proving? Like, I already know I can play soccer. Like, I've already done this my whole life. Why am I here willing to take like possibly tear an ACL or something like that? And I have to go back to a desk job tomorrow. I was like, not worth it. I'm done playing soccer. And I haven't played soccer since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And did you face any other injuries in college?
did I have any?
Or like, you know,
I had like a groin injury my sophomore year that was it just like you know how it is, like it just never quite goes away, never
mm,
goes away, never goes away. Um I think it lasted for like 6 months or almost a year, where I was dealing with a groin injury or just like always rehabbing, always rehabbing. Finally I kind of got through that, but other than that I didn't have any major injuries. I was very lucky. I had so many teammates go down with ACLs. I had so many teammates um, do anything, little things. I had
yeah.
one of our teammates tore his pec in the weight room, couldn't play for a full season. Like that stuff I was very lucky. I didn't end up with one of those injuries.
But like the groin thing, even like being 6 months with a groin, nagging groin is a bit, that's a chronic and a restricting situation. Is
Yeah.
that even like now, if you face like minor tweaks and injuries, do you feel like you have a better grasp of like your own body and the recovery process and all that stuff?
For sure. I also like I take it kind of into my own hands too. Like, hey, if I'm gonna get better, if like I used to just rely on my trainer. Hey, what do I do? Okay. And they're like, well, I have 30 people here. Hey, do this exercise and go out there and tell me if it feels better and I'll put a hot patch on it or something like that. Nowadays, like, right now I'm actually dealing with like a little bit of a shoulder issue. And you gotta take your time off. You gotta be smart about it because there's nothing worse than a nagging issue. So I've been it's actually going away, but it was been for like the last 6 months but it's like you also can't take off that much time. Like unless you have a serious injury,
Yeah.
if you can still play without pain, I would get sore at night and I do my strength trainer actually does like a bunch of rehab stuff with me. So while I lift, like my first actual set of exercises is all rehab.
Yeah, really interesting. And is it common just having pains in your elbows and your shoulder?
Yeah, actually it's way more common than I thought. So in soccer, it's like not common to like every now and then your ankle's kind of busted up, but you're kind of all right, I'll play, or you have a toe that hurts, or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
but also to be fair, you weren't a 29-year-old also playing soccer. Yeah,
exactly. So it would kind of like you just deal with it, right? You're 18 years old, you just were like, I'm unstoppable. Whereas now I'm kind of like, okay, if I really screw up my shoulder, I'll, who knows? Like I don't want to go get surgery, right? Like if I do something horrible.
yeah,
So I take off like the relative time and I do all like the recovery things that are just like much more important now that I realize that my body doesn't recover like it used to. Right. So I'm actually icing my shoulder and I'm actually I do ice baths like every probably 3, 4, 5 times a week. Just because it's necessary now. Where back then I was kind of like I could just make sure I ate enough Chipotle and I basically was good to go.
you have a thing with Chipotle.
Yeah. I eat a
What is
lot of
it?
Chipotle.
What's the story?
So here's the thing. So in college I lived
Me,
right
me,
next
me too. By the way, me too.
Okay, good. So I lived right next to Chipotle in college. So I ate there at least every day, if not like twice a day. And when I say like right there, like if you threw a baseball with like a pretty good throw, not your hardest throw, you would have hit Chipotle from where we lived.
Also,
So
back then, you could like get a good meal at Chipotle for like $7.95,
yeah. I remember in college at one point it was $6.50 for a big burrito.
and you could get away with a double meat.
Easily. Like now you might be dropping $20, like right? Like it's like
Yeah,
kind of funny.
no, it's standard.
But
Yeah,
But I just started eating Chipotle all the time and I realized a few things. So I could get a good meal, relatively healthy, if you're not throwing all the crap on it. So a good meal that was very consistent. So like the consistency was always pretty good, right? It was never you have your very rare instance where it's not as good one day,
Yeah.
but it's like very consistent. So you had your consistency, you had your price when you're in college. Even now, like I'm a pro pickleball player. It's not like I'm making the greatest living of all time. Some pro players are, but I'm not. Um, it's nice to have something that you can just go to that's very consistent, very good, hits your macros, hits everything like that. And I just love it.
And but you have a thing like you're trying to get their attention.
Yeah, so like I have so many people reach out for me. I feel like I've gotten close a few times. And then what ends
But
up
what is it for a
happening,
sponsor? Like to get a sponsorship or something
yeah,
like
so
that?
like
Yeah.
to be honest, all I want is one Chipotle burrito a day. Like if I could just get a Chipotle burrito a day, I would post about it 10 times more, and I already post about it a lot. So but like then I see somebody else, like there's one of the top tennis players in the world. He just got it. And I had like literally 10 of my friends send me his post about Chipotle. And they're like, this guy took your spotlight. And I'm like, yeah, but he is literally in the semifinal of the US Open this weekend. I'm not there. So I understand why Chipotle went with him, but I'd probably be cheaper than him. Like I just want a burrito.
Yeah, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. I like it. Um, and in terms of injuries, specifically, do you for injury prevention? You mentioned like you have different prehab exercises that you do
Yeah.
with your strength and conditioning coach. But do you, I don't know, do you implement something that you never thought you would? Or like something a bit alternative, something not standard, not orthodox.
Yeah. So for my shoulder specifically, I do a lot of cupping.
Hmm.
Um, I've kind of gotten into the cupping. I don't know. I mean, I understand the purpose of cupping. I understand. I've kind of looked into it a lot. Bringing essentially, it's just bringing blood to that area. Blood brings basically your body heals itself. Your body's a very interesting um, organism that, like, if you allow it to heal itself, it usually does heal itself. Sometimes not as quickly as you wish it would, but it still does. Well, I started realizing, okay, well, like every time I cut my shoulder starts feeling better. So I started using cupping a lot. I mean, I was just because I don't know if it was a placebo effect in my brain here that it was feeling better or if it really genuinely was helping. But regardless, I felt the actual impact of cupping being a positive experience for me. And so therefore I just kept doing it.
And do you like you do it also consistently, even without the shoulder injury, or is it something you've only implemented since the shoulder injury?
So it was mainly just for the shoulder
Yeah,
injury, but because it makes me feel like makes my shoulder feel good, I just consistently try to do it
yeah.
as often
There's
as I can.
there's that's like the common tennis elbow injury. Is that something
Yeah.
that's common in pickleball as well?
Yeah, so I have a lot of friends that talk about this. It's common because what ends up happening is it's just like some people may not want me to put it this way, but it's bad form. It's just like it's like if you run with bad form, you're probably going to end up with shin splints or different things that are going to happen to your legs. Um, it's the same thing in tennis, like or the same thing in pickleball, where if
Yeah.
you're hitting a ball with a certain form, your muscles aren't as strong in certain areas, and it's going to cause a lot of pain because you're not strong for hitting that type of thing, and your body can't stand it. Um, you see it a lot because there's a lot of bad form because people again don't have coaches. They're just doing this as their fun morning workout. And so you end up with a lot of people, you'll see the strap on the forearm, they'll wrap it around and they're playing through pain because they'd rather play pickleball than rest. Like and really what they need to do is just take a little bit of time off.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so common amongst the in-laws that go and play on the weekends.
It is.
Like they're all like someone sent me this article how like insurance companies are raising prices for weekend warriors who go and play pickleball because they're
Sure.
expecting the injuries, not just everyone. I keep hearing of popped Achilles
Yep.
of all the old people that are playing, and it also just makes sense, right? But for
Yeah.
you, do you feel like you're making all these? You played soccer, which is an unpredictable game where you're moving and very dynamic all the time. But still, it's different than the movements on pickleball. Like, even
Yeah.
me, I'm like, the couple times that I played pickleball, I'm not really used to the side shuffling a lot. So
Yeah.
I feel my groins afterwards, and I feel different muscles, just ones that I'm not used to that I was never used to really activating for a prolonged amount of time. Do you feel that, like, the impact of it?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, there's definitely a few things. So the biggest difference I found was I played on grass my whole life, right? So you're playing on a hard court. So my
Yeah.
feet at first were not used to that. So my feet would hurt more than anything else. And then when your feet hurt, your knees hurt a little bit more. When your knees hurt, your hips hurt a little bit more. When your hips hurt, your back hurts a little bit more. So
Hmm.
you could like kind of get this like, oh my gosh, I spent 8 hours on the court yesterday. My body can't take that. I never spent 8 hours on a soccer field ever because I think you would die if you played 8 hours of soccer in a row because you're just so exerted.
Yeah.
But in pickleball, you kind of get a chance to catch your breath. You get a chance to kind of like stand around. Sometimes your partner's playing the whole point and you're literally standing there waiting for a ball to come to you, right? So like it's not that physically exerting all the time. So you can stay there for longer periods of time, which is also bad because like you said, these weekend warriors, they go out there and they're like, well, I didn't really like run hard or I didn't do anything. Yeah, but you spent 3 hours on the hard court in the sun doing all this. It's going to take more of a wear and tear on your body than you actually think or what you feel today, right? So it's just different. It's just so different.
Do you miss playing soccer?
No, 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 no. I
Yeah.
do not.
Do you think about it? Do you think about not missing it?
So it's when you ask questions about like, did I reach my full maximum potential? That's when I start wondering, like, wow, did I miss out on like a little bit of something? But at the end of the day, like you can't live in the past. And I don't miss soccer. I played it for so long. I love it. Don't get me wrong. Like I will never bad talk soccer. I think that we have some of the best athletes in the world. But I definitely like have kind of found my own niche and I've kind of like loved where I'm at now. So it's been fun.
And to what age, like, do pro pickleball players play?
There's a few pro players that are very, very good. They're still like in their late 40s, early 50s. Um, what ends up happening is singles goes first because singles is so much movement. Um, I would argue that singles pickleball is harder on the body than tennis singles. Um, you're doing a lot more in going forward, backward, and side to side, very weird movements, and a lot of times digging very low with like some very awkward shots. I've noticed like it just takes a wear and tear on your body when you're doing that much, like stopping and going. So I wouldn't say that singles pickleball is a harder sport than tennis. It's
Yeah.
just harder on your body than tennis is. And then, but like I just I love every single part of pickleball, and I've found my little spot that I can just enjoy every single moment that I'm out on the court. And I've always told people that I will stop playing pickleball as soon as I stop liking it. I promise you that.
Yeah, good. I don't think
Yeah.
you should stop. So you're not in a rush. Like, you don't have the cap of like soccer, age 33, 34. You need to think about ending it.
No, no,
Yeah.
especially not for doubles. Singles, you start getting worked around the court, and you're like, yeah, I think it's time. I think I need to hang up the singles paddle. But it's like for doubles, you can basically hang out there, which is why the population started with these the older generation, because everybody can kind of get out there and still play. To play at the highest level, you just got to make sure that your reflexes are good, and then you got to be mentally stronger than everybody else.
Yeah. Are you in touch with former teammates
Yeah, yeah.
from
Actually,
soccer?
I was just at a wedding this weekend for one of our teammates, so we had basically half the soccer team there.
So a reunion.
Yeah, we had a little reunion this weekend, so it was good to see them. I probably hadn't seen some of those guys in a few years. So it's like every wedding, like you just kind of get back
Yeah,
and
yeah.
forth and
So this is like the season, the age, right, where everyone's getting married. So yeah, we
exactly.
had a similar thing about almost a year ago. where we
Yeah.
I saw guys that I haven't seen
But it's great,
in
right?
years.
Like it's something that pickleball doesn't have. You don't have that like team locker room environment, which I would argue that the locker room team environment is the best part of college soccer.
Yeah, yeah. I would say bits of it. You know,
Yeah,
bits of
that's a good way to look at it.
because very easily it's like you put a lot of guys in a room together. It can be amazing, and usually it was amazing, but
Yeah.
also very easily it can turn toxic. With the competition, with
Oh yeah.
the fact that there are really only 7 guys that are truly happy there, because there's only about 7 guys that have a secure spot on the
Isn't that
pitch.
interesting? I know. I
Yeah,
used to think about that all the time because I always felt
yeah.
comfortable, right? I'm just being honest. I always was like,
Mhm.
all right, like there's not a threat in this room, right? That's the way I looked at it. And then, but you're right. Wow. Some of those guys are, especially the guys that are number, 21 who aren't traveling even, and they're just miserable. And they're like, oh my God, I got to come in here and I got to watch these guys who are happy. And then they're getting beat in practice. Like it's just mentally draining for a lot of those guys too. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I'm very interested in everything that you said. I'm my baby boy is due in less than 3 weeks,
yeah,
so super excited. And I'm thinking about the sports aspect of it.
yeah,
I don't think I think the soccer will be a must. Just the beginning stages of it. But
yeah,
even me, when I think about my um, you know. Uh, journey as an athlete. Also, based on this conversation, I don't want you to think that this is all I think about.
yeah, it's all
Just
good.
talking about these things is resurfacing a lot of these
Yeah,
thoughts for me. But what would I like if I could have chosen, to go a different route? What would I have chosen?
yeah,
Would I choose an individual sport as a 12-year-old where my entire journey is in my hands alone? Um,
yeah,
or would it still be good to just dive in with a bunch of guys that are going to interchange every year, and you learn about different personalities, you learn about working with different people, you learn about yourself, how ruthless you are around people, maybe your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities.
yeah,
So I don't think there's a right answer. I just think that
yeah,
it's a very nuanced thing that either whatever journey you pick, so it's you learn a lot. So it's amazing that you got to get to and got to experience really both.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm very lucky. I would say, looking at like the kids aspect is, I hope someday, all I want is for my kids someday to be well-rounded. That's basically all that matters. They got to be happy and well-rounded. And so if that, some of these kids that play tennis, they have no social interaction with, and they've never been on a team. They've never let somebody down other than their own parents.
Yeah.
But or they've never been felt the joy of winning a team championship where you get to celebrate with, you know, 15 other kids that are, in with all these different families. Like there's that really cool aspect of that team environment, but then they get that other feeling of like, they're alone, and their accomplishments when they do accomplish something was all them. So that's pretty cool too. So again, I just want my kids someday to be fully well-rounded and happy.
Were your
That's all that matters.
parents involved during your soccer, development?
So I would say that my parents were the best parents ever. They did not care one bit what the results were ever. They asked us three things every time we came home from soccer practice or whatever it was. They said, "Did you have fun? Um, did you do your best? And were you a good sport?" And I could usually say yes, yes, no.
Yeah.
Because there was always one of those that you didn't do so great that day, right? Like you tried your best and you were a good sport, but you ended up losing. So you said that you didn't have fun. Or,
Yeah.
you had fun and you tried your best, but I was sometimes again like a little bit fiery. So I wasn't always the best sport. So it was like, but my parents, that's all they cared about ever. And then they said, well, and I told them at one point, I said, I'm quitting baseball. I was better at baseball than I was at soccer. And I swear my mom cried because she was like, wait, no, you're like way better at baseball. But I just enjoyed soccer so much more. And so she was just like, gotta let him do it. Gotta let him go play soccer.
And now in the pickleball journey, is your family involved to some degree?
I wouldn't call them involved. They watch and they support very well.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I
Um,
mean. Yeah, like just
yeah,
as
yeah,
part of your journey to
yeah,
some
yeah.
degree, supporting you along the way.
My dad was the one that convinced me. He said, you're only going to be, when I quit, I was about 27. No, I was 28 when I quit. My job, my full-time job to play pickleball.
Yeah.
And he said, you're only gonna be 28 once. And he's like, that sales job that you're leaving, it'll be there. All these jobs be there. He's like, professional pickleball might not be there in 5, 6, 7 years. He's like, go play. Who cares? And so he actually was the one that like kind of pushed me in the direction of like being less safe and less predictable and to go pursue my kind of what I wanted to do. So, and he's kind of doing that now too. This is kind of like a new revelation in my life, but I'm probably going to go back and get my master's of public health degree just because I love kind of everything about health and fitness and the macro view of the world and how health impacts it and the effects of, societies and what they can
Yeah,
do.
and it seems
So
like we're in a some sort of a turning point when it comes to all of those things.
I think so too. So I kind of was like, I kind of want to go back to school, learn a little bit more about this kind of stuff, and maybe find my own next like passion that I can do for the rest of my life. Because, as former athletes, we kind of have this identity crisis, right? You stop playing soccer, you stop playing your sport that you love so much, and it's like, where am I? Who am I? And it's a big thing that like affects a lot of people. So many of our friends go through it. And so it's something that for me is very important and something that I have to pay attention to is like finding my identity outside of sport and going and pursuing something that I'm passionate about.
In those few years where you were not, playing pickleball professionally and already soccer's behind you, were you still active? Were you still, competing in something,
Uh,
sports wise, or were you on a
n-
break from sports?
Not really. I kind of took a break from sports.
Were you challenging it? I don't know, like, were you one of those that signs up for triathlons and Ironmans?
So I at one point signed up for a marathon and then just like never trained and I tried to do it and I hurt myself and I was like, I'm not doing that again. I was just doing like Orange Theory and like some
Yeah.
boxing classes, like just for fun to stay in shape. But like I was not doing anything like close to competitive. So I think that that's why pickleball struck me so hard is I was like, oh my gosh, I can be competitive again. I can like work on something again. But again, like pickleball became my identity for like a few years. And then now I'm trying to like make sure it's not my full identity anymore. You'll
Yeah.
see like a lot of my stuff on like Instagram. I'm trying not to be full pickleball because it, you gotta have something outside of pickleball to keep you grounded, in my opinion, or outside of your sport to keep you grounded.
So what is it for you besides Chipotle?
Yeah, it's Chipotle. No, it's for me, it's just kind of under like getting into this health fitness side of things.
So
Learning a lot
you're
about
already actively like trying to learn.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm just trying to like I really have a passion for it. I love it. I like to understand it, and now I'm trying to like figure out where that next step kind of takes me because I want to do something that's kind of a little bit more impactful.
Amazing, man. And because look, that's what we're trying to do with this podcast is really,
Yeah,
explore people's personal perspectives when it comes to things like health, like, something I've learned since, playing soccer, since being at Penn State, even with all the resources and the athletic trainers and the nutritionists and the
for
sports
sure.
psychologists. They were all, and this is like not a knock on any individual, but they're all like relaying information that's prepackaged almost. And
For sure.
in health, everything is so individualized and so personal and so
Yeah.
nuanced. And even things like, nutrition, where, and these are things I think about when you said like about
Yeah.
maximizing what we had then. Is like it's so difficult because if the nutritionist at Penn State told me to eat XYZ, and I ate XYZ, I thought that I was maximizing, what was being asked of me.
Yes.
But it's not, right? But it's not. That's like the easy cop out is just to listen to the nutritionist who's,
Yeah.
just whatever, putting a Word document for 800 athletes.
That's exactly what it is.
To follow.
Yeah.
So that's what we're exploring here, because you hear different things about health from person X and then something else from person Y. So let's hopefully we can do this again sometime,
Yeah.
and let's see how your perspective also about those things has evolved over time.
Yeah.
I hope that you do stay healthy.
Appreciate it.
But if not, it's that's how I see it. I always see those moments of injuries as just opportunities to like really learn. It's like the best case study, out there. And
Ever.
I'm always people have had it worse than me. People have had it less bad than me, but I've always like faced injuries that they've all taught me different things. And even things where, I when I was like 16, 17, 18 is when I first was exposed to the concept of ACL injuries in soccer.
Yeah.
And I obviously did not want to experience it, but seeing other people experience it and other athletes experience it always made me think like, what is that? Like, how does that happen to you? And like, what does that mean that you can't like play now for 7 months? What do these things mean? And then I went through it in college, and then it's like, then you learn, and like, it's just, these are all learning experiences. And something in the elbow teaches you about your arms, and something in the ankle teaches you about your back. And it's like, it's just all these different things. And we are the anecdote, we are the case study for ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's why, and something I've learned even also doing this podcast and talking to all these people is that no one truly knows definite answers to anything, because everything is so dynamic and ever evolving.
Absolutely. Well, I love what you're doing with this podcast, because I was going through and I was listening to some of your stuff, and I was like, wow, you've had some, first of all, you've had some really awesome guests, just awesome people. But also I'm like, wow, there's so many different pieces of, where you've kind of been able to branch out to. It's really fascinating, because again, like you said, everybody has that perspective that you probably don't have, or you have not had. And so it's good to hear all these different viewpoints, because everybody kind of has their own experiences that shape them.
Absolutely. And again, that's all we're trying to do is learn. Like, I'm learning together with whoever's here and whoever's listening. So Danny, thank you.
Yes.
It's again, I think it's the first former soccer player that we've had on, definitely the first professional pickleball player, and definitely the first Danny that I'm interviewing. So
love it.
Yeah, it was super fun. I'm wishing you good luck with the shoulder injury. I hope the cupping helps. We also, as part of what we the courses that we sell and teach, we do a lot of workshops and online stuff about different cupping modalities, different also shoulder, how common it is for everyone to face shoulder injury. So I wish you luck with that, and I'm glad we connected. Let's be in touch.
We will.
And I hope we can do this again, and hopefully in person. And if not, we'll do it online.
We'll find a way to get one in person.
Yeah. And so do you still have some family connection, friends connection to South Florida?
Yeah. I get down there all the time. South Florida is also a huge pickleball area. So
amazing. Okay. So we will get together.
We'll figure it out. We'll find a spot. We'll find a time.
Amazing, man. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. You're the man.
Speaking with you.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Later.